Hello everyone, good morning and thank you for joining me and the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra's regular Sunday morning 11 o'clock meditation and talk. Today we won't have meditation, but I will go straight into the talk. The topic of this morning's talk is Buddhism without Bhikkhuni ordination. Of course, historically speaking, Buddhism had a Bhikkhuni ordination right from the life of the Buddha at the very insistence of his aunt and stepmother Prajapati Gautami and 500 other Shakya women. They all insisted on a number of times, and finally Buddha gave in and gave the ordination to women. So therefore Buddhism has been with the Bhikkhuni ordination from its early history. So the highest ordination of women took place in 400 BC. So it's not a problem that actually existed in the early phase of Buddhism. But the reason why we have this topic at hand today is that that some parts of the world, the Buddhist Bhikkhuni ordination has not spread for various reasons, whereas other places Bhikkhuni ordination has spread. For instance, it is said that in early history of Tibetan Buddhism, during the time of Tibetan King Chesong Detsen, his second wife or queen, Droza Changdrup, and 30 other Tibetan women all received Bhikkhuni ordination. And the one who gave the Bhikkhuni ordination in Tibet to those Tibetan women was a Chinese bhikkhu, and so belonging to the what called Dharmagupta tradition. That is in 709. But at that time, the tension between the Tibetan and Chinese side of Buddhism was relatively strong because of the Samya debate. And so the king making a decree that Tibetan would follow only Indian tradition and not the Chinese tradition, because Dharmagupta tradition is not a Chinese tradition. It's only preserved by Chinese tradition, but actually also has come from India. So Dharmagupta tradition, as well as Mūlasarvāstivāda tradition, which the Tibetan believe by following, both have come from India. But somehow the Chinese have made a decree that beside Dharmagupta tradition, no other Vinaya ordination system will be tolerated. And same was done by Tibetan side, that we will only honor the Mūlasarvāstivāda tradition. So as a result of that, there have been, even though 30 Tibetan women were ordained with the Dharmagupta tradition in 8th century, later on the king Tiralpa made his decree that it should only be the Mūlasarvāstivāda tradition Tibetan, that should be accepted in Tibet. So because of that, in early phase of Tibetan Buddhism, the Sino-Tibetan political tension and a philosophical tension has made a Vinaya tension as well. As a result of that, Tibetans have sort of not accepted any kind of Dharma influence from China, be it Vinaya or Zen or whatever meditation that form was. Of course, after that, then with the King Langdharma having persecuted Buddhism, then Tibetan Vinaya itself would have suffered a serious setback. So the setback Tibetans suffered caused later on the revival of Buddhism, largely through the work of Lachen Gongpa Rapsel, who revived Buddhism from the lower Vinaya, they call it, because came from Kham side. And then we have upper Vinaya that came from Lama Yeshiva in the 11th century. So anyway, in 1204, the great Indian abbot, the Shakya Sri Bhadra, he came to Tibet, and then he may have revived the Mūlasarvāstivāda Vinaya ordination. But there seem to be, there are some stories that some certain Tibetan lamas did ordain women with the Bhikkhunis and so on, but they never lasted long. So in the overall, the Bhikkhuni ordination in Tibet did have a start, but due to the tension between Sino-Tibetan relation and the counter decree by Tibetan king and Chinese king made the gulf of misunderstanding so big that they wouldn't respect or accept each other's lineages. So that is unfortunately the root of the tension between Sino-Tibetan Vinaya schools. So since then, there seems to be no serious revival of Vinaya Bhikkhuni ordination in Tibetan Buddhism, let alone in Bhutan or Sikkim or Ladakh or Mongolia or Nepal or Mustang or all the Himalayan regions that follow Tibetan Buddhism. Of course, we know for fact that Vinaya Bhikkhuni ordination has been very strong in Chinese tradition, Korea and Chinese Mahayana, and admirably they have not suffered any setback losing the Bhikkhuni ordination. And otherwise they wouldn't still have the Bhikkhuni ordination. And since Tibetan Buddhism become exposed to the rest of the world in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, there have been a number of Tibetan students, Tibetan adherents, Westerners in particular, who wish to seek ordination of Bhikkhuni ordination from their Tibetan tradition in which they are raised. But when they want or they ask, there never were anyone willing to ordain them, stating that they never had the Bhikkhuni ordination, so they could not institute a system that never existed, stating that to cause the ordination of the Bhikkhuni in the Mūlasarvāstivāda tradition, you need both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis whose lineage is not broken, in order to create a preceptor council to ordain. Stating this, most the Tibetan, all the Tibetan teachers who had some Western and other student who wished to become ordained as a bhikkhuni, they usually sort of say, we can't help you. And then some of the leading women practitioners themselves have sought permission. Can they receive ordination from the Chinese Mahayana and Vietnamese and other traditions where they have the Bhikkhuni ordination? So I don't think the Tibetan teachers have been that reluctant, but they said, of course you can go. So we have many people like Gelong Tenzin Palmo, and a number of Western disciples of Tibetan Buddhism have actually went and received ordination in Chinese Mahayana tradition, or Korea, or Vietnam, or wherever the case might be. So this has been the case, but nevertheless there have been always the issue has been raised why Tibetan Buddhism could not entertain the idea of ordaining women in its own tradition, and then number of I would say number of conferences were held in Tibetan Ministry of Department of Religion and Culture has coordinated a number of the meetings, whether such a thing can happen or not, and they even create a research group to study whether the lineage of the Dharmagupta tradition is authentic or not authentic. So they did lots of, I suppose, necessary, but maybe seem very unnecessary. They were researching as if the other traditions were authentic or not, which I seem is not a right kind of thing to do when fellow Buddhist lineages have kept their tradition so long. We should go and receive the ordination from them without discriminating whether their lineage is authentic or not, or whether they have pure lineage or not, and so on. Anyway, so years of 20, 30 years of Dharamsala-led initiative to cause ordination of women has yielded no fruit whatsoever. So therefore, quite a lot of strong advocates of Bhikkhuni ordination in the Tibetan Buddhist movement, particularly Westerners, have impatiently were working very hard, but it all has not really come into fruition, stating various technical reasons, saying that we don't have Bhikkhunis of the Mūlasarvāstivāda tradition in order to revive the Bhikkhuni tradition, because to do the Bhikkhuni ordination in the Mūlasarvāstivāda tradition, you need both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis to create a preceptor council to be able to ordain. Bhikkhus alone cannot conduct the Bhikkhuni ordination, stating this as the main reason that Tibetan Buddhist tradition has not succeeded to institute or start a Bhikkhuni ordination. Even the Buddhism is a very strong part of Tibetan Buddhism. So Buddhism without Bhikkhuni ordination actually means incomplete Dharma. If there were to have complete Dharma, you need the 4 members of the Sangha. And without Bhikkhuni in the Sangha, the teaching is not complete. And this is clearly stated, was stated even by His Holiness Dalai Lama when he attended and spoke at the special convention on the topic in Hamburg University, which I also attended. But having stated all of these things, but actually there is no one who was daring to take any initiatives. And now I must say a little bit in historical fact, when there were many disciples of Choedak Rinpoche, who are Australians and other Westerners, also wanted to seek ordination. And of course, His Eminence Choedak Rinpoche, at my request, suggested that whoever is able to ordain bhikkhunis in the entire Buddhist tradition, we should go and organize and receive ordination from them. As a result of that, in October 2003, I, with the help of the Venerable Thich Kong Ba, the abbot of a Vietnamese monastery here in Canberra, we both therefore created an international preceptor council, invited many bhikkhus and bhikkhunis from overseas, and our center Sakya Losar Chozong sponsored and invited those senior bhikkhus and bhikkhunis from Vietnamese tradition, and which all belong to the Dharmagupta tradition. They're all flown in from everywhere in the world, and we organized this ordination ceremony here in Canberra, and some 19 women took the ordination, out of which others were bhikkhunis. So we did that, but of course that is not started by the Tibetan tradition as such, because I'm nobody. Only thing that actually was the first Tibetan Buddhist convened Bhikkhuni ordination historically. It's quite well documented in the actual Bhikkhuni ordination history, even though Tibetan media has completely turned a deaf ear to it, never reported it, neither in English nor in Tibetan. But all major leading newspapers in Australia ran articles, and saying that's a really groundbreaking historical event. So that's that. I thought I must mention that. But what prompted me to give this talk today is only this week, on 21st of June, in Bhutan, none other than the Je Khenpo, who is the head of His Holiness, the head of the Bhutanese Buddhist head, Je Khenpo. He had ordained 144 women of Tibetan Buddhist traditions, as well as Bhutanese. Many others also travel from other countries. They were all ordained in Ramthangkha monastery in eastern Bhutan. And so this ordination ceremony, of course, is from the Je Khenpo's his own monastery and institution has said, in order to revive the Dharma through this infinite compassion by the Je Khenpo, they have solemnized the ordination of Gelongmas at that monastery, which is a very big historical event. So, as soon as this has occurred, this became a news headlines. It has brought lots of different opinions. Of course, those people who have been waiting for anyone, let alone the head of the Bhutanese Tibetan Buddhist tradition, head taking the initiative to cause the ordination of women, is of course well received by all the international women's movement, as well as those who have been advocating Bhikṣuṇī ordination in the Tibetan Buddhism. Rightly so. I'm totally among them to rejoice this great leadership and great initiative and great innovation. Because if Dharma is meant to spread, allowed to spread to countries where that have not spread, why can't Bhikṣuṇī ordination cannot be institutionalized where they have not been institutionalized? Because without Bhikṣuṇī ordination, Buddhism is incomplete. It says that Buddhism is not complete unless there are 4 members of the Sanghas, and Bhikṣuṇī is one of the most important one, as well as Bhikkhu and Sramanera and Sramaneri. So because of that, I think the Je Khenpo has, through his vision, has added the completeness of Buddhism in Bhutan at least, because by adding this new chapter of Bhikṣuṇī ordination. Whereas Tibetan Buddhism is still, overall Tibetan Buddhism, no matter how popular it may seem or whatever it is, it still has a lot to learn with regard to the Bhikṣuṇī ordination, because their refusal to accept the Dharmagupta tradition. Dharmagupta tradition or Theravadin tradition or the Mūlasarvāstivāda tradition all came from the same different Nikayas of the Buddha Dharma. The 18 Nikaya schools that developed in India was all to do with the various interpretation of the Vinaya practices, and there are no doubt they all come from Buddha's teachings. So in this time of globalization, talking particularly His Holiness Dalai Lama's vision of one humanity, religious harmony, and so on, universal responsibility, all of these begs that such discrimination should not be entertained, but actually respectfully respect the other lineages tradition. Even if one which doesn't want to receive initiation teachings of ordination, one should still respect their tradition as authentic and not pass remarks as if their lineage is not pure or incomplete or broken. So that's why all the various initiatives that to research, many years of research. Well, you don't need researching. We didn't do any research in Tibet when Buddhism came to Tibet, whether Buddhism in India was authentic or not. Who want to do that? Who want to bring this research thing? All this unnecessary scrutinizing is not necessary. Some scrutinizing is necessary, but extreme scrutinizing to the extent of doing so many years of research and producing no fruit whatsoever. But still some community in the Tibetan Buddhism are seen to be passing remarks as the Je Khenpo's initiative of ordaining Bhikhuni is somewhat not quite according to the Vinaya practices. Well, theoretically, philosophically, you can argue that, because many are academically very well versed in Vinaya. To look at the actual practice of the Vinaya itself in the monastic tradition. We don't even observe the not eating after midday, never even introduce, let alone any of the other traditions. So when we talk about the practice of the Vinaya, we're not talking about the theory and all the buried our head in the books, and whether that is allowable, not allowable, and so on. When you do that, then you only succeed to prevent others who has one and only precious human rebirth, and they have become nuns, and they now want to become fully ordained. And we are using technical reason to block them from getting the ordination. Doing that will be quite contradictory to all the vows, Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, all the vows. So therefore, in terms of the equality of the gender is concerned, in terms of oneness of humanity, globalization of everything, universal responsibility, you'd think of from all angles, this is not a time to pass remarks and judgment about other lineages and other innovative teachers. So therefore, Je Khenpo's ordination of the 144 women in Bhutan this week is a welcome, unprecedented historical daring kind of initiative, because this will therefore make Buddhism has to have Bhikkhuni ordination. Buddhism without Bhikkhuni ordination is still living in the dark ages of gender discrimination and caste discrimination, creating a kind of caste within itself. Thinking there is no caste system in Buddhism, but creating two castes, male and female castes, is already bad enough. That's divided only two genders, you know. And females are very important. His Holiness Dalai Lama has mentioned that it is a time that women leadership should be encouraged. And the more women do the leadership in all areas of society, let alone spiritual tradition, will bring some kind of motherly, gentle qualities that otherwise is lacking in various forms of society. So because of that, you know, the leadership, His Holiness Dalai Lama has made lots of leadership roles in order to confer Geshe-man degrees and Lopan-man degrees, Khemo degrees. All these things are academic degrees to the women. If they are intellectually able to reach same height as a male, which they can, why they are not entitled to receive the actual spiritual vows of a fully ordained woman's ordination? Just to think that they shouldn't be, because the book says this says this, we don't have this. If you just say we don't have this, then you might as well never have invented airplanes, saying that, oh, there was never any metal box that fly in the wings. Why you would invent anything? So does it mean that something didn't exist before you can't have? Then you shouldn't use any of the things that didn't exist before. You shouldn't use any of the gadget. We shouldn't be using modern the smartphone, telephone, all of these things we shouldn't be using because they didn't exist before. So that kind of inward looking will not serve any purposes. So that's why Buddhism without Bhikkhuni ordination, which is some Theravadan tradition and Tibetan traditions, are still really behind time. By stating, we know that one Buddhist leader in Australia, Ajahn Brahm, and his Sangha, of course, organized the Bhikkhuni ordination in Western Australia. And he was ostracized, can you believe, by his Sangha from Thailand, saying that he is not following the way of the lineage. So this is the sort of thing, this kind of stiff resistance to this very inward-looking text, those people whose head is buried in the text, not in the world that we live in, is only theoretically creating problems, but actually not advancing the very, very Buddhist teachings. The fact that we have a huge followership of Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism, is because of existence of so many female deities, female bodhisattvas, and female practices. So, because at least the Western adherents of Buddhism know that women are treated as equal, and not only that, women represent wisdom, women represent the perfection of wisdom, and we can say these things nicely, but here you want to even give the ordination for the woman, or even if you don't have, you wouldn't sanction those who take the ordination. Of course, I hope that's not happening, but there is a sign that certain quarters of the people are passing remarks as this ordination of women, Bhikkhunis in Bhutan, is some kind of a not following, not quite according to the Vinaya, they say. I mean, I don't know who's practicing things according to Vinaya. Just in the day-to-day practice of your Vinaya in the monasteries, what aspects of the Vinaya codes of ethics are observed or not observed? That's a really personal matter. People have to mind their own business. But to restrict others from receiving ordination, or even passing negative remarks as this should not be allowed, this is not authentic, is basically criticizing others' Dharma practice, which is contradictory to the Bodhisattva vows. Bodhisattvas should not be passing, practitioner of Mahayana Buddhists should not pass dissenting remarks of other bodhisattvas. Now, the Je Khenpo in Bhutan he's not answerable to anybody except his spiritual teacher. He is head of the sovereign nation. And they actually have kept their country intact. They have stood very firm. Their nationality, their people's practice of faith in the Dharma and is immaculately kept pure. And so to think they are doing something not according to Vinaya text or something is sheer arrogance. And if you want Buddhism without bhikkhunis, you don't need arrogance. We have not succeeded to maintain or introduce the Bhikkhuni ordination in Tibet, and therefore, no matter how much we can boast Tibetan Buddhism as a complete form of Buddhism, because it's got Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, but it hasn't got the Bhikkhuni ordination of Theravada tradition. Even if it has the ordination of the other bhikkhus and sramaneras, how much of the actual practice of the Vinaya code are actually implemented in the monasteries? You know, we need to watch that ourselves. Of course, it's not appropriate someone like me who's not a monastic, but we all have to respect our other Dharma practitioners of a sovereign nation, their leader like Je Khenpo. And so therefore, it is very, I would say, welcome news that the Gelongma and Bhikkhuni ordination has now instituted in Bhutan, because Buddhism in Bhutan, even though is a sovereign nation, Bhutan is a sort of offshoot of following the Drukpa Kagyu due to Shabdrung Ngawan Namgyal. And it is an integral part of Tibetan Buddhism. And Tibetan Buddhism have 4 schools. Out of the 4 schools, Kagyu tradition has Drukpa Kagyu, Karma Kagyu, and various others. And then Drukpa Kagyu has 2, you know. We have the southern Drukpa Kagyu and the northern Drukpa Kagyu, upper Drukpa Kagyu. Drukpa Kagyu is everywhere. And so therefore, the southern Drukpa Kagyu, which is the Shabdrung Ngawan Namgyal, because Je Khenpo is the 70th Je Khenpo of the celebrated Druk Ngawan Namgyal's tradition that has kept the Buddhism in Bhutan very strong, is largely through the leadership of the unbroken transmission of the Je Khenpos up till today. So therefore, it's a great pride, a great matter of rejoicing for Buddhists to see that Buddhism should not stay without Bhikkhuni ordination. To do that shows very something is quite not right. Something is missing. No matter how comprehensive and complete Tibetan Buddhism is, its prejudices and its reluctance to honor Bhikkhuni ordination of the other traditions, like the Dhammagupta traditions, or someone innovatively doing ordination in a new way, like the Je Khenpo's tradition of doing this without female bhikkhunis being part of this preceptor council, because they don't have anyone. Who knows, maybe they were. We don't know the ins and outs of it. Maybe they have included some Dhammagupta tradition ordained Gelongmas in Tibetan tradition as a part of the preceptor council. We don't have the details of the formation of the actual thing. They have really said very solemnly that it is through the great vision of the Je Khenpo that this ordination has happened in order to revive Dharma, which is commendable, and rest is details. So this means that Tibetan Buddhism has now time to wake up, because Buddhism in Tibet started in 7th century. Now the Buddhism that spread from Tibet into other countries like Bhutan or like Mongolia and so on, when the branch of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition has woken up and taking the initiative to institutionalize ordination of women, and then that means they have now learned to grow strong and provide leadership. And this means that may this Bhikkhuni ordination that has just instituted not only be respected, but also be maintained, so that that Bhikkhuni tradition does not get thwarted by saying, "Oh, we don't accept the Dhammagupta tradition," or because we don't accept because it's a Je Khenpo started it without any Vinaya kind of a relevance. If saying that would be repeating the same mistakes that was committed in 8th and 9th century. So hopefully this will not be repeated. And Buddha himself ordained his aunt Prajapati Gautami and 500 other Shakya women. And so since then, Bhikkhuni ordination has been historically accepted in Buddhism. It is almost indispensable. They say that when we talk about precious human rebirth, they talk about one of the endowment is the place should be central. Central is where there is Sangha. Where there is the 4 members of Sangha, then that means when you're part of the place where there's 4 members of Sangha present, there the Dharma exists. So if the Bhikkhuni doesn't exist, there is no precious human rebirth. There's one of the things that it's incomplete. So we could not claim to have precious human rebirth because we are living in a part of the world where there is incomplete Sangha, you know. So technically there's a lot of argument for the necessity to institutionalize and create the Bhikkhuni ordination for the sake of actual existence of Dharma in the first place, let alone in the form, and let alone in the substance. So that's why Buddhism without Bhikkhuni ordination that exists in Thai tradition, they have not allowed the Bhikkhuni ordination, as well as in Tibetan tradition. These two Buddhist countries, Tibet and Thailand, has lagged behind. Now Bhutan and Korea and Chinese Mahayana Buddhism, they have actually kept the Bhikkhuni ordination. So therefore there is Buddhism with a Bhikkhuni ordination. But there are certain segments where they don't have Bhikkhuni ordination, but they have very devout female novice practitioners. Of course, they themselves are not seeking Bhikkhuni ordination for the sake of trying to be equal with men and fighting for the rights and that sort of thing. Of course, Tibetan women are never going to be persuaded by, no matter how feminist kind of led movement are going to persuade that. That's not according to Buddhism. But Tibetan women, there are many Tibetan nuns who are just Sramanera, novice, but their practice in humility and purity are more commendable than many other people of whatever ordination level they have. So therefore, Tibetan Buddhism, in essence, does not lack the qualities of the women practitioners, and they need to be respected. But because of all the sexism in all societies, Tibet is particularly still buried its head in that archaic system. May not have changed so much on the form, but deep down, Tibetan women practitioners, even as a lay practitioner, let alone ordained nuns, are equally reputable and respectable practitioners. So we don't lack, in essence, the Buddhism even without Bhikkhuni ordination. But technically, if we really are talking about technically speaking, Bhikkhuni ordination, without Bhikkhuni ordination, Buddhism is incomplete. So now, historically, in 2022, the Je Khenpo, this 70th Je Khenpo, the current Je Khenpo, has not only cut the ribbon of Bhikkhuni ordination in Tibetan Buddhism, but also he will be remembered for many, many centuries to come for his gallant and courageous leadership that has now woken up the world. So I thought of stating this because I have been ardent promoter of the ordination, if possible, because the followers of Tibetan Buddhism in the West has a huge number of female population, and their wishes and their aspirations should be fulfilled. We are trying to fulfill the wishes of everyone, let alone so specific things like Bhikkhuni ordination. So therefore, hopefully this will send a good positive signal to the Tibetan Buddhist world, and then learn to rejoice the merit created by this ordination in Bhutan, and then try to see how we too can emulate this good example, so that the world will not be looking at us saying we are not taking initiative after 30, 40 years of research, but still nothing can be shown in fruit. I'm sure His Holiness Dalai Lama, I remember, said that there should be some initiative how this can be done, because that will make the four sanghas complete. And I'm sure he will agree and commend this work of Je Khenpo in Bhutan. And so, with this in mind, I'd like to conclude today's talk here on Buddhism without Bhikkhuni ordination is not complete form of Buddhism. Now, at least Buddhism with Bhikkhuni ordination in Bhutan has made Buddhism in Bhutan complete. Whether elsewhere they have complete Buddhism or not, they have to check themselves. So therefore, this is a very good news. Thank you very much, everyone. That's all. See you next time.